Our show is about how we can heal the earth through our own efforts. The person we interviewed, Beth Hassett, has spent most of her adult life working to improve the lives of people hurt by domestic violence, rape, and human trafficking. This show is dedicated to her work. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me, Beth. Please tell me your full name and the position you occupy and how you ended up there.
I'm Beth Hassett, the Executive Director of Weave, which is a organization, nonprofit in Sacramento, and I've been the Executive Director for almost 6 years now.
Please tell us what the mission of Weave is, what it stands for, and what's your part in it.
Weave grew out of the women's movement like many of our sister organizations in the 70s, and so we've been around since 1978, starting out as a domestic violence center and then taking on the rape crisis work for the County of Sacramento. And in the past 3 years, we've added victims of human trafficking to those that we serve. Our mission is to bring an end to domestic violence and sexual assault in partnership with the community. And we do that through partnerships and fundraising and engaging people in bringing an end to the problem. And I guess I'm the one at the top with the vision, or so they tell me.
Because you're the Executive Director.
Exactly. That's allegedly my job.
You weren't one of the founding members.
Now, our founders were 3 Latino women. I've had the pleasure of meeting all of them, and they started as victims who wanted to make sure that other women did not have to go through what they went through. So they created Weave, founded it, and fairly shortly after that turned it over to another executive director who was here for quite a long time. I worked for her in the 90s, as a matter of fact. One of our biggest challenges in Sacramento, which is a very diverse community, is that there are some subjects that are absolutely taboo, especially in with Latino families, and sexual assault is one of them and domestic violence is the other. So encouraging those victims to come forward and get the help that they need is very, very challenging for us as an agency, and it's something that we actually prioritized this year. We've been working with the Mexican consulate and a lot of other supportive services in the region, just trying to encourage victims to get the help that they need, because we know there's a big problem there.
What can we, as a American society, the United States society, what can we do about it?
And one of the biggest challenges we have in serving monolingual Spanish-speaking clients, which we have many of, is finding the service providers who can do it. Finding bilingual counselors is a big challenge for us. People who've got that education and the experience is very tough. And also just finding those linkages to that community, people that are trusted who will send their folks our way, knowing that we will serve them well.
So one of our viewers is like you or I, is an Anglo-American, maybe they don't speak Spanish. What can they do for you other than writing you a check?
You know, I think that any of us, especially if we're educated, we aren't a person of color, we don't have some of those typical things that you think of as being barriers to success in our background, we have to own the fact that we have a level of privilege and responsibility to offer assistance and go an extra mile, go beyond just being available for service, and actually look for people who need our help and help connect them to resources. What we try to train people to do is to recognize and respond when they see somebody who might need help. And there are certain people who have more access to folks who might need help. Hairdressers hear a lot of stories. We do a lot of trainings with hairdressers. Anybody in the medical field has a unique relationship with somebody who might be at risk. Landlords, people who work in the housing industry, are likely to see the signs of domestic violence and human trafficking and sexual assault. It's everybody keeping their ears and eyes open and just noticing. If somebody's being mean to somebody in a grocery store, not just letting that happen in front of you, actually saying something to someone.
You've said twice human trafficking. How common is that in the United States?
You know, I did not believe that there was a human trafficking problem 3 years ago when we were first approached to be a part of a collaborative. And I said, if there's funding, I want the funding up front, because I don't know if there are any people, and if we're going to develop an infrastructure here to help them, we need the money. Sacramento is one of the key hotbeds in Northern California for human trafficking, along with
Why do you think that is?
You know, it's Contra Costa County and Alameda County, and the traffickers are moving the people around. We're at the crossroads of I-80 and I-5. There's huge access to people and the ability to move them around. So we're seeing more and more victims, and they really fall into two different categories. There's the underage sex trafficked minors is a completely different issue than international victims of trafficking who are lured to the United States with hopes of work and a new life and then are held captive. They're really two different populations, and we serve them both.
And Las Vegas and Sacramento are very similar sized cities. Las Vegas is just slightly larger. And he was saying that it's very common, and that people, the same kind of people who go to Vegas, you know, to roll that dice one more time, you know, maybe literally and figuratively roll the dice, are the kind of people who might want to hire an enslaved person to gratify themselves. Is there that same kind of dynamic here? Sacramento's a bedroom community with a bunch of government workers.
You know, with the internet nowadays, people have a unique access to whatever it is they want to buy, and unfortunately, too often that's underage minors and who are being trafficked. And so, yeah, it's a huge problem, and it's getting harder and harder to stop, because every time we figure out where they're peddling these poor kids, they find another way around it, and the kids deny it, and they often are being arrested for prostitution, and we're never getting to the pimps, we're never getting to the people who are actually doing the trafficking. Well, and when we punish the victims, whether it's a victim who is an undocumented immigrant or a victim of human trafficking, we never get to the real perpetrators of the crime, first of all, and we create these multi-layers of barriers for anyone to ever seek help. They're afraid to even look for help because they might get shipped somewhere,
arrested. Might get deported.
Absolutely. So it becomes extra hard to try to serve the people that we're trying to serve, because we're just one more scary thing out there that isn't going to help them.